No human experience is so unbearable or traumatic that you need to resort to psychedelics to find peace. If anything, one of the insight that many people seem to extract from the psychedelic experience is that life was perfect as it is. It's just they're literally have been taken for a trip. They have been taken for a ride by psychedelics, and whether it be their ego to accept the fact or to be in perpetual denial that maybe psychedelics are not the answer after all. It's just like with California, they vilify smoking, nicotine, but they laud cannabis as the panacea, silver bullet for all. But they don't realize how detrimental it can be, cannabis, when it takes over your life. And they say, okay, fine, if you can do it once a month or something, but most people don't do that. They look at the boom of this cannabis industry, and most people abuse it. They recreationally abuse it, and same goes for DMT, whether it be ayahuasca. You have these Westerners, these Europeans, to burn thousands of dollars for an ayahuasca session in Peru. And excuse me for being judgmental, but and what they do, and if that was really the answer, do you think people who are really suffering in Africa, the sort of stereotypical image you can imagine, where people are really suffering in poverty and hunger and with malnutrition and with a deformed teratological body of monstrosity, with genetic disorder, or in people who are disabled, who suffer from retardation, or any deformity. You honestly think if psychedelics were the answer, that somehow the kid from Africa or from Bangladesh or whatever, that all they need to do is just spend some thousands of fucking dollars and just go to Peru and do some ayahuasca, and then life would be magically perfect? So that's why, excuse me again, excuse me if I'm being judgmental, that's why you get all the spoiled Europeans. They somehow save their money, or who knows, God knows how they get the money. They go to Peru, and this is of course an unconventional opinion because this is not popular. They go to, and they do it, and it's not once, they do it again and again. And all those what do you call those, sequeras or whatever, they keep trapping them and luring them. Maybe you should do 6 more sessions before, and then what? Then what? Somehow you do 6 or 7 sessions, and you somehow magically your life will be perfect. And again, you obviously, if you can ascertain from my tone and demeanor, yeah, I never did it. Only time I did was mistakenly salvia, and once not so mistakenly, one on purpose, and I hated it, as most people have related. And it was horrible. And first time, the only benefit I got was it kicked my spice habit for a while. And but psychedelics are just another trap. I don't care if it's DMT or ayahuasca or shrooms or LSD. Let's assume that there's some truth to the kernel of truth to the statement that the reason when DMT hormone or whatever the chemical gets secreted at massive dose at birth and death, there's a reason for it. Whenever the reason why we're here is I always feel it's kind of like a cheat code. People who refuse to do the homework on a math, and again, this is coming from someone who hates academia, who refuse to grind to work out the answer to a math problem. They just look at the back of the book and find the answer to the math answer, and they just write it down. And what's the point then? I mean, I'm not lauding hard work or anything, mindless hard work, but the joy of living, the joie de vivre, is experiencing the life in all its struggle and his beauty and his glory. But most people bypass and short circuit that route is by taking a massive dose of some chemicals and thinking that will somehow bring them enlightenment. And that's why I ranted about it in Psychedelic and Sudden Guru Syndrome. Somehow you get all these spoiled tweens, about 20 to 30 year olds, or even whatever, they do this massive doses of DMT or LSD, and they somehow think they found the life's answer, and they go and they go on lecturing the rest of the humanity on YouTube or on a platform, while all the while trying to make a name for themselves, getting more and more popular. This is not enlightenment. This is sick. This is sickening to me. And obviously, I'm one of those square people, and it's probably making marijuana withdrawal syndrome, whatever. But then again, this is, if you're so enlightened, you should at least have the decency to overlook some dissenting opinion from me or any other resistance, because you just keep doing it more and more. And even there's a buffer space of 1 year or 2 year. But if it was the solution, solution to mankind's problems, then all you need to do is one time and you to get the insight. But you didn't do that. It's almost, and I think Ajahn Brahm and people of his caliber got to figure out, I don't think he ever did anything, but from life's experience, the life struggle and hardship, that's what the insight that he got, I assume, that without even doing this DMT like a spoiled brat, is that human desire, there is no end to human desire. Assume you get Aladdin's genie, and that's psychedelics exactly what they are. Andrew Weil talked about his he got rid of his allergy to cats, and some people get from whether in hospice they get cured of, not they get cured, they find solace to the terminal disease, and some people do get cure. For example, I have eye problem, I wear glasses. What would happen if a genie comes to you and ask you for a desire? What would you desire? Infinite desires? Desire that, okay, I want to get my eye cured, I want to get $1 million, billion, and where does it end? Where does your desire end? You don't need to do psychedelics to figure out that maybe I should let go. Maybe there's the negative thoughts are not bad. Maybe there's balance in the whole world. Maybe there's an Advaita Taoist from that perspective, everything is impartial. The bad is good, good is bad, negative is positive, positive is negative. From that perspective, you don't need to fucking do psychedelics. And you also get this arrogance, and some people say, oh, but have you done 5-MeO? Or they knock down other people's experience. Unless you have done a DMT, unless it's nothing like. And they have this smug arrogance like, oh, I have this profound, intense experience, and I cannot even relate to human level, as if the rest of human is unawakened masses, and they are somehow the exalted ones. Even though they don't say it, explicitly spell it out, sotto voce, that's the sentiment. Oh, there is this ultimate dimension, it is so beautiful and profound, I can relate to the dumb human level. And then they say, imagine this is like a playground or like a candy store, and your mind gets blown apart, and you go to another place where there's another candy store and or a playground. It's like one guy even talked about going from playground to Disneyland, or I'll give another interpretation of my version, like probably like you go to taste a candy and then you go to another Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or whatever. But then what happens if you get tired of that? There is no end to human desire. And then what do? You just keep doing it more and more. There's another famous guy on YouTube who probably did 30 times in a row. There are more people like that. Alan Watts, there's a reason why Alan Watts said when you get the message, hang up. But most people don't hang up. They think the next big hit will solve life's problem. Again, I'm not... And the reason why I say this is to balance it out, because Alan Watts once said the reason why Buddha said life is suffering is to balance out the notion that life is pleasure, hedonistic. So I mean, and there's also a reason why NDE is more pleasant, is because you're essentially pouring a bunch of chemicals. I mean, from objective viewpoint, neither from spirit world, neither from this world. If you were to objectively step out of your body and look at this experience, all you're doing is garbage in, garbage out. What I mean by garbage in, garbage out is like the amount of, you're assaulting your senses, basically. You're assaulting your brain. You don't have respect for the brain. You don't have no respect for the gift of life. So you're constantly looking for an escapism, and you somehow think that will solve life's problem. And then what? Suddenly you think you're getting the flow for perpetually. That's not the point of life. Point of life is not to be in a flow. And as I said, I've did salvia, and one of my most profound psychedelic experience was actually from sensory deprivation, flotation. And although I never had those, those hallucinations like a DMT bore, but it was more gentle and natural. I think LSD and mushrooms are more gentle and natural, but DMT is like, it's like just like what I mean by garbage in, garbage out. Just like when you're ingestion and ingestion or the ingestion and the, what do you call that, is an assault. It's a very rough, brutal way you're doing it. So obviously you're gonna have that sort of intense experience. But if you take a more gentle approach, just like smoking weed or something, or like even drinking, that's where you get a more gentle experience. The more you assault, and the more you assault your sense, even salvia, it's the kappa opiate receptors get activated or something, because it's an assault. It's the intensity of the chemical composition of the compound, and the amount of dosage you take in a short brief amount of time, and you precisely get that sort of response. Probably ayahuasca is more gentler compared to DMT, from reading from the experiences and looking at the videos. But still, I mean, essentially it's because in ayahuasca you have to do the ritual, you have to take this trek. But if I was God, I wouldn't make it so moronic that I would be moron, absolute moron, to make it seem like the only way that you can find life's answer is by doing DMT or psychedelics or drugs. And you get the spoiled European and American and Westerners, especially this. Not white, race has nothing to it. But what I have to mention white, because you got all their, they're burning daddy's money and whatnot. And I know very well I'm being judgmental, because I have a tone of judgment and resentment, and probably, who knows, probably envy and jealousy. And so what? If you're really enlightened bodhisattva or like a Buddha, maybe you should overlook that, but you don't. If you don't, maybe there's something wrong with you. Because here I am from my poor little human existence, spitting up, and hoping the spirit will follow me. But if you're so exalted, then when I spit it to you, it shouldn't bother you. So yeah. So what would you ask if a genie, Aladdin's lamp, a genie would ask you for anything? Ajahn Brahm would say, people would actually, what would happen was people would ask for this, like candy store, like a law of attraction manifesting. Ultimately, one day you'll realize that, you know what? The only real thing that to ask for is not those trippy hallucinations. Again, if you want to have that experience, who am I to prevent you? But only one day you'll realize the only thing that matters is harmony and peace at heart and in natural life. And I understand some people have, like, who do ibogaine or even ayahuasca, that if you have a strong problem, addiction problem or something, and they get rid of it by doing ibogaine and ayahuasca. I understand if you're in that space, but most people are not like that. They're the spoiled rich kids who haven't felt what it feels like to starve and be hungry and cold and miserable. And you got spoiled white European and Africans, Americans. They go to ayahuasca probably, and I'm sure probably okay, fine and good enough. You saved your money from doing work. Who am I to judge you? But so you do the trek and pilgrimage, and you think somehow that is the only way. And that's the problem with religion, whether it be Islam, Christian. Whenever you have this arrogance, this smug arrogance, justification, then maybe the psychedelics are the only way, or unless you have done psychedelics, then nothing can come close to it, not even from yoga or meditation. That's what I'm gonna knock. Why? If I was the creator, I wouldn't make it such in a way such that the only way you can find the answer and the meaning to life is by in this. You need money for it. The answer is right here. There's this book I have. They said it's called Your Inner Potential. It's kind of like a children's book. It's written that way, and it says there's this in the Hindu mythology. They said, I'm paraphrasing it. That the gods, what they did was they wanted to bury a treasure, and they realized if they put it in the space, human are so ambitious, they'll find it. And if they put it in the depth of ocean, humans are so adventurous and heroic, they will still find it. No, and if they put it on the top of mountains, humans will climb Everest and they'll get it. So they became clever, and they put it right where they wouldn't afraid to look, right under their nose, in their own heart. So again, I wouldn't. The problem with you guys is whoever do all these things, because you keep doing it. You guys are rich, spoiled kids. Some live in rich, spoiled Western countries, first world countries, who haven't seen the real hardships of people from Bangladesh or Africa or whatever, what it feels like to be in squatters, to have nothing, and to feel grateful for life. So you don't have the slightest appreciation and gratitude for the life, the gift called life. So you feel you need to cheat. You need to find a cheat code, and somehow justify that this is for the betterment of myself. You need psychedelics or DMT to figure out that you shouldn't treat others the way you shouldn't. Really? You means God is such a moron? That is the only way only way he left, only route, he unexplored route, he uncharted route he left. The only way you can find happiness and peace is by doing that. And that's the only reason I'm knocking it, is because you don't have any gratitude, appreciation for this gift called life. You're always escapism. And again, if it was only one time, but people do it several times, and that's what happens with trap. Yeah, but Alan Watts would also say the Zen is a trap. The biggest ego trip is to get rid of ego. Similarly, biggest trip with psychedelics, even if your well-meaning intention is to be a better person, it's still a trap. Why the urge to improve yourself? What else do you want? What do you think will actually make you happy? Do you do this thing and you keep doing it for inside of to what? To be a better person, and then what? Suddenly everything will be la-di-da-da, happy. But obviously there's no end to human desires. Human desires are boundless, and obviously it will never make you happy. Psychedelics will never give you the answer. Psychedelics never make you happy. And admittedly, I never did it, and probably if I did, I would have been a different person. But again, just like cocaine, it's another. You're replacing one vice for another vice. I'll bet you're doing it probably, I know, after 1 year or 2 years, but still, you're still doing it because you're still searching for that answer. You're still trying to go to the next level. And that is an ego trip. That you're trying to kill ego, but by doing that, that's exactly what egoistical. By trying to kill the ego, you're being more egoistical. People judge others, say, oh, don't be so negative, but they themselves are negative because then they say, don't be judgmental, but then they themselves become judgmental. Most of the psychedelics, if I could, the interpretations I get, and if you were too dumb to see the benefits of your own, to see the interpretations of your own experience, is basically the reason why you see this is basically what it is ultimately trying to say, and it's so simple that your thoughts, you're a prisoner of your own thoughts. Doesn't mean you should end your thoughts. That's another ego trap. I mean, Rupert Spira, excuse me for mentioning his name, or even Muji or Eckhart Tolle, all these people, Advaita, so-called Advaita people, gurus, they talk about stopping the thoughts, being the witness. But what about the witness who defines the witness, who watches the witness? I mean, where does it end? Ultimately, what's it all about? What are you looking for? What are you searching for? You can stop your thoughts. Maybe you can write it. Maybe you can... embrace your shadow and your demiurge. And one of the things, and I found that after the flotation therapy, that I become like a Baphomet, like I embrace both the yin and the yang. And that's another thing with all this. The moment someone reeks, and I was reading this book about this lady, white lady, who became this Buddhist, Korean Buddhist, and she was reeking of sanctimony. She was like talking about Korean Buddhist. She found Korean Buddha, and she said, "Oh, I saved this poor black guy from the white neo-Nazis." But she became this virtuous, like this martyr, like the savior of a hero complex, saint complex. But the tone, she reeked of sanctimony. So you're by saying, "Oh, forgive those people, the angry and the hard and the ugly and the who has the ugly behavior and the rude and the assholes. We should be more compassionate to them." Just by saying that, you're delineating good and bad. That's not Advaita. That's not Taoism. That's division. Just by saying we should be kind to the unkind, just by doing that, you're making delineation. You're saying, I'm good, I'm above you, here you are below me, and I should pity you, and I should save you. I should be the hero. That's not spiritual. That's sanctimony. So and whenever you have some of this goody, as Alan Watts would talk about Chuangza, goody goodies are thieves of virtue. The moment you have people who is this odiously, disgustingly goody goody complex, you know something is off. Alan Watts would also say, some you need a little bit of slyness in your behavior, like a salt in the stew, some little bit of imperfection, or else that wouldn't be perfect. You wouldn't be perfect. That's why embracing of your shadow. That's why probably when I feel awakened or like actualized, then again, excuse me for trumpeting myself, but then again, probably that's exactly what I should do. I should be a little egoistical, just to be less egoistical. I realize that I need to be a more asshole to be more self-actualized. You cannot be the moment you're goody goody and this nice, kind, loving to people, then obviously, because if you don't acknowledge the ugliness and the disgusting behavior and that you're as asshole as the other person, if you don't acknowledge that assholeness of yourself, how would you be compassionate to other assholes? If you don't realize that yes, I have some assholeness with me and it's okay, perfectly okay to be an asshole, how would you be compassionate to the other the people who are hard, who have ugly behavior, who are rude, who are angry? If you think should be goody goody all the time, positive and smiling and happy, blissful, kind, and you should get rid of all your negativity, whether it be via psychedelics or DMT. You should get rid of all your vice and be this virtuous. Then how exactly will you be kind to the unkind? You can't. What happens is you become this sanctimonious fucking prick who thinks you're better than above just because you did some psychedelics, and you don't become natural. Look at a baby. A baby sometimes cries. You give him a gift, he throws it away, and that's natural. That's spontaneous. That's like more in with Wu Wei. There's more. The baby is not disciplined. Baby's like, and the reason why baby's like that, because in the primordial, in the instinctive sense, she or he can sense what resonates with him or not. The moment, even if you're smiling and being nice, the baby can deduce it right away if you're being inauthentic or not. So try to be like a baby. Try to be authentic instead of positive, fake positive. And I try to preach that in all of my videos, because that's missing in our society. We are raising a bunch of fucking millennials who are afraid to be non-conformists, who are utterly this sheep, watery, this snowflakey sheep who are always conforming to other people, bending over backwards to please other people, because we're in this Instagram culture who are afraid to ruffle any feathers and to be themselves, be the man they are, the women they are. And only because lest they lose viewership, just like the media will only say things that you want to hear, not want to hear, but it's popular. Science is popular now, that's why they preach all the science. But media doesn't want to report any truth. Journalists are not neutral right now, or like objective. Media is a sellout now. So don't be media, don't be the society, the Instagram culture where you always have to feel the need to. And this is why, I grew up with listening to Eminem, and that's why we worship people, because these people are authentic, even though they're assholes, because they'll tell you flat out that if they don't like you, they'll don't like you. Not everyone has to like some other people or everyone. We don't need to be kumbaya. But forcing yourself to kumbaya via DMT or whatever, you're diluting the gift that God gave you. Ultimately, what you gave me a middle finger to God, and saying, you know what, fuck you, I don't like the life you gave me, so I'm gonna find whatever it takes, whether we're going to the jungles in Peru or whatever, by doing this, by assaulting my body, my senses with this chemical white powder, which is not natural if you think about it. You want to talk about natural? What is natural? They talk about cannabis is natural. Well, by that logic, hemlock is also natural. People use words used to justify, to say my narrative is better than your narrative. And I know I'm doing the same thing. Maybe I'm doing it to balance it out. And maybe if I did psychedelics, maybe I would fall right into the trap. And maybe after 1 year, I would be doing it again. I would be craving, just like the heroin or meth addict chases the dragon. Probably I'll be doing the same thing. What do you want? Something will this magic bullet will suddenly make you a better human being, and your rest of your life will be a flow. There won't be no obstacles that you'll get rid of your negativity and your disgust. And that's another ego trip. If you're trying to get rid of your flaws, why the need to get rid of your flaws? You're just trapping yourself. By trying to get rid of your flaws, you're acknowledging that you're a flaw, and you're embracing yourself. But you're acknowledging that it's something, you're defining that something is good, something is bad. You're not out there to find peace or heal trauma. And I understand if you're really fucked up, if you need to heal trauma, probably. But most people are doing it recreationally. There's no respect for set and setting people, and probably there are. But as they say, it's a businessman drug, DMT, right? You can do it whenever, like in 15-minute span. And who knows? Maybe it does make you a better person. Maybe it does open your third eye. But then what? When I did flotation therapy for 2 weeks, I felt like, they say, what is enlightenment like? D.T. Suzuki say, it's like, it's on being on air, being 2 feet above the ground. It's just like in normal everyday life, but being 2 feet above the ground. And that's how it exactly felt like. It's just, but still, after enlightenment, you still need to do your laundry. You still have to shit and pee and fart and eat. You're still human. No amount of heroic. And Terence McKenna is the extreme example of what abuse of DMT, and people laud him as the next counterculture hero. But he completely, and there are people like that who don't have the slightest respect for life, because they haven't felt what it feels like to be miserable, cold, in a bitter night, whether it be in slums in India or Bangladesh or Africa. They take life for granted. They have the slightest gratitude. They think somebody's just popping some pills or doing some powder, smoking some powder will chemically alter their brain and somehow magically will transform their life, and that's why they have suffering. You cannot. The only way ending suffering is to ride with it. The Taoists talk about, the 10 ox herding. At the end, they found out the only way to, at the end, the fat guy, I don't know what it's called, Hope or Lipoi or Hotai, and he rides with the bull. He doesn't kill the bull. You cannot end your thought. You cannot stop your thought. You can ride it, and you can direct it. Discipline, for me at least, doesn't work. You cannot discipline your thoughts. You cannot get rid of yourself. I mean, people say, okay, the reason you need to change, reframe, reprogram your entire subconscious. Then what? You're gonna, for 30 years, this is who you are. So you're gonna deny the 30 or 40 years of your life and trying to be someone else. Might as well do. What are you gonna do? Like do plastic surgery, change your face? That's essentially what we're trying to, and I'm not talking about Maxwell Maltz or anything, but whole psycho-cybernetics, but essentially, with the positive psychology gurus and its spate of, you have all these positive psychology gurus and all these tweens and 20 to 30-year-olds, this the spate of positive psychology. What do you want to do? You want to deny your whole life and change your whole entire being and entire experience and be. You cannot do that. You cannot deny your experience. The core of your being, it has been set right from the beginning, and you need another 34 years just to change that. And probably, well, there are natural ways of doing it. Tao says a scholar learns every day new things, and a Taoist unlearns something every day. So maybe, that is, you have to shed layers after layers of onion, and maybe that's it. And another way to, I think, I found some spattering of information I found somewhere, read here and there, that doing what you love activates, awakens third eye. Whether it be whatever, you don't need DMT to open third eye. Doing whatever, gardening or driving or whatever cooking, whatever gets you really flow in the and I'll bet it doesn't stay that long. Runner's high, whatever, you don't feel that. And obviously it's nothing like DMT, I understand, but why you're just trying to go to the next level. There's always this next something, the next stage, the next big hit, the next something, and you're deluding yourself. You're chasing the dragon, you're chasing a Fata Morgana mirage, ultimately just like a spiritual trap. What do you want? Peace is, you cannot buy peace and happiness with some drug. You can hack peace and enlightenment. You have to do the dirty work and the dishes. In the Limitless, Bradley, and I'll end it on that note. Bradley Cooper versus Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro, he gives this monologue and speech, and that was pretty. Even though he wasn't the protagonist, he said, "You have never done all those. You have never climbed the greasy rungs of the ladder, corporate ladder. You don't know what it feels like to sit in a meeting and do all those dry and boring meeting and tedium of negotiation. You never did those. So obviously, you think some magical pill or smoking some powder will somehow ultimately solve life's problem. But I'm sorry, my friend, you're just deluding yourself. You're just trapping yourself with another paraphernalia. Thank you.